Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. I'm just going to try and stick to the time. I think I know most of you, but for those of you that I don't know, I'm Dana Lipnickus. I'm the website manager in finance and change leadership and communications. And I have been at Yale since August of 2014, which equals 0 time for most people that work here. Pretty new. I'm still learning a lot every day. Most of the people I work with are sitting in the front row here. Very supportive, awesome team. Thank you so much, guys. So today I'm going to talk about the It's Your Yale web project. That's been a very long time in the making, a lot longer than I've been here. And it has a lot of moving parts. So I'm going to go through some of them at a very high level. And if you guys have questions, just raise your hands at any time. So this summer, hoping at the end of July, all of finance, human resources, and administration websites are going to come into one web experience, which is lots and lots and lots of disparate websites into one website. So this will give people a chance to get everything that they need in one place, instead of going to all these different websites. The project team represents all departments that will be included in the site, as well as Lisa Sawan from ITS, who's been a running theme already today, and our fearless project manager, Candace Czar, who is also a liaison with our vendor. So I'm just going to go through some of the site examples that we have currently. We have sites on all different platforms all over the place. So this is the Yale University hotline. This is a looker. This site is in HTML. It's hard to manage. It's easy to delete. It's difficult to get to because it's on a particular server that is actually going to be decommissioned after this website goes live. This is also HTML. This is the auditing site. And they're clunky to update, and not everybody has access to the server. They have access in different ways that are just not intuitive. So finance is in Drupal 6. This is a little bit easier to manage, but still it's pretty old. Most of the Yale sites are in Drupal 7, or we're hoping to get them there for now. And this is shared services. So you can see that they all sort of look really, really different. And something that we're trying to do is make everything look more cohesive, have more of a branding feel, so that you feel like you're in the same experience. So some of our sites are moved to Drupal 7. This is the chart of accounts. And there are much more nice features like the accordion feature, which you can open and close things in a fluid manner. The modules are easy to use. There's much more white space. There's less noise. And this one is a project that we did with ITS for the Operations Manager's Resource Guide. And this has everything that an ops manager could possibly need. And it was put together by Rosemary Bellwin, who I don't know if she's in the room right now, and Liz Vistakis. And they did an amazing job putting together an extremely easy-to-use Excel spreadsheet that ITS then materialized into an amazing website. And this is an exact example of what we want to do, because then we hand it off to that client, and that client is able to use it themselves, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. So choosing a vendor. The team wrote a request for proposal, which is called an RFP. And it started before I started working here. And it took about a year to iron out everything that we wanted to include in the website. All the elements that would be out of scope, meaning not included, and anything like third-party software and how that would be handled. So 11 vendors responded to our RFP. And the Yale team narrowed it down to 3. And the 3 chosen came on site to do their presentations. The vendor we ended up with is named Chief. They're based out of Washington, D.C. They're totally amazing. They're so organized. They're so brilliant. And they have a lot of experience with government websites, which actually really is not that different than working with the university, the complexity. So when we chose them, they started writing a statement of work. The statement of work has everything in it that we want to be on the new site. So they came to campus for a kickoff meeting, and they gave an overview of the project, and they met with specific people to discuss issues that they had with the current website. So this is called discovery. And the most popular sticking point with the current sites was that nobody could find what they needed. So then there's things that are created like the jump site, which I'm sure all of you use and know what that is. It's just really a link farm of all the pages that you could ever want to go to in one place. So this is what we're trying to alleviate with our site, everything in one place. So one of the first activities that Chief did with the team was something called navigation model testing. And a group of people were chosen to sort and group topics under different headings. And this helped decide what the website navigation was going to look like. And it created a general consensus that certain items should be in certain areas that make the most sense to the larger group. And this is designed to make everything more logical and easier to find. So this is what a typical sitemap would look like. So if you can imagine that you want all of those items under About Us to make sense. You want a user to go to About Us and know that they're going to get the history of the company. You want the user to go to Contact Us and know that that's where they're going to get a feedback form. So this is just a visual way to understand how the back end of the site is going to work. And we're actually still iterating on this, right, Karen? We're still iterating on this. So as you can imagine, all of the different departments have so many sites, so making that sitemap is difficult. So the next step was wireframes. This is done before design so that all the elements on the page are in place. And it shows how the page is going to function in a rudimentary way. It's really the nuts and bolts of the page. So before the designer hits the page, it knows where everything is going. And this is just an example of what a wireframe would look like. So you can see that there are boxes with X's through them. Those would be the images. The boxes on the left are just mainly text and a headline with a button. But it shows you clearly where each element is going to live on the page. And it helps with the design moving forward because the designer will know where to put the images, logos, and all the other pieces that are integrated in the look and feel. And I believe we had about 2 or 3 revisions on each wireframe, which is hard to do if you're not a visual person, if you don't understand what that means. So it's really like, and I think Lisa Sawin said this once, it's like the blueprints of a house before you build a house. So you sort of really have to have a vision of what's going to go inside. The next phase was mapping. So this was an outline of where all of the pages from the old sites would live inside of the new site. So in finance, we have 47 websites. And personally, in finance, I spent 2 to 3 months mapping 47 websites. So, and I see Lisa Maloney is here, and she has a lot of websites as well, and it took her a very long time to map too, because you really have to think about this page, where is this page going to go in the new architecture? So it's not really that simple. It's page by page by page, and each page is, you have to think about everything that's on it. So this is an example of what mapping would look like. So on the left-hand side, you would have the URL that you currently have. And then you would have the title from that page, and then the location that it would live in the new website. So if you are going 4 levels down, you still have to map those 4 levels so that when you go back to actually do the migration, you know exactly where you're putting it. You're not thinking about it. Because when you're doing the migration, it's going to take even longer. And then you can have notes areas for whether or not things need to be revised. And you can decide what level those revisions are in priority. So right now we're in content migration. And it will continue through the end of April. There are several people working to help move the old websites into the new website. And while we do this, we're in constant contact with the vendor in terms of questions that we might have. Sometimes things come up, such as features that might be missing that we didn't realize, or bugs that need to be fixed, or just style issues that we're having. Finance has 2 dedicated ITS content migrators who are only working on this right now. And Christine's here. Can you just raise your hand? Because I would like to give you a round of applause because you're awesome. Because we can't do it without you. Thank you so much. So after we're finished, we're going to have training. And so the plan is to have each unit be responsible for their own content. And so there will be training on how to use the new website for those folks. And there will be security so that only your department will be able to get into your department's materials. So because it is a community website, we don't want people to be able to get into other departments. And then also there will be the issue of governance, where on the place, like the homepage is going to be curated by everyone. So we'll probably have something like an editorial calendar. And then when issues come up, we'll go to governance and they'll make decisions for us. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through what it looks like. And you obviously can't see this because it's teensy. But this is the homepage. And it's similar to the Yale.edu look and feel. That's what we took it from. So this is the top of the page. And the orange part is designed to be an alert bar if something were to happen on campus or if there was an outage of some kind. And the area next to the search box on the right underneath that, is called the utility navigation. And that is going to include links to the Yale calendar, to the Workday application, to Yale News, directories, and logging in for CAS. And then right underneath that, where it says Home, Work at Yale, Administrative Services, etc., that is the main navigation for the site. And directly underneath is going to be a carousel of images and news. So this is a perfect example of governance. This will have an editorial calendar because we're all going to have reasons and needs to use it. And then right underneath that is called I'd like to. And that's sort of a way for a user to explore the site on their own. There'll be tasks that are added in or changed according to things that are happening at the time, like tax season, I need my W-2. I'm curious about training. All of those items will be under there, and you can pick and choose and just sort of discover the site. And as you scroll down, there's something called Yale Links and My Links. And at the time when I took this screenshot, My Links wasn't showing up. This site is in development, so things come and go. So if you can imagine, next to Yale Links, it says My Links. And this is pretty cool. Yale Links is going to be pre-populated with links that are based on analytics and what people are using the most. And My Links is going to be for you, the user, to be able to pick and choose what bookmarks you want to have. And it's basically going to be as simple as just checking a box, which is pretty cool. So there'll be like a bunch of stuff you can pick from, and then you can populate that yourself. And directly underneath that is called Explore Your Community. And that is going to be a news area that will be curated by administration and human resources. So further down is called Business Leaders Update, and it's similar to Explore Your Community, where finance will curate this section. It will be our news. And it's sort of like Yale Blue currently is. And then underneath that is called frequently used. And this is going to be policies and forms based on analytics that people use the most. And at the bottom is the fat footer. And this is just basically everything that's in the main navigation exposed so that the user doesn't have to scroll all the way back up to the top to look for something that they might need. So I'm just going to go a little bit under the hood in the main navigation so you guys can see. And you'll see things like tests. You'll see asterisks here. It's in development. So some of the test pages were created when our vendor came on site to do training. So just ignore those. Work at Yale. Work at Yale is going to have things such as getting information on your benefits, going to a particular department in finance, getting access to training, forms, employment information, and finding an item you might need on the Eli Surplus Exchange. Administrative services are all the things to get your work done. So a few examples are, if you wanted to pay your P card, you would click on Buying and Paying. If you wanted to find out how to mail something, you would go to Campus Services. If you needed to move your office, you would click on Traveling and Transportation, and you would find Moving and Logistics. So it's just making it a little bit easier for everybody to find the things that they need. And then policies and procedures, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. The current policy site has all of Yale's policies and procedures. That's going to be moved directly into this section. But all of the forms and guides that we have in finance, human resources, and administration will also move into this area. So they'll be filtered and sorted, and you can search them. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then Yale is a research institution, so research support is prominent. And this is going to house anything from animal research, human research, grants, conflict of interest matters and protocols, contract information, faculty research and management services. And then under community, this is all things about getting around campus, off-campus housing, public safety information, helpful information about commuting, and diversity on campus, including affinity groups. So that's a basic overview of our project, and we're really excited for all of you to start using it, hopefully sometime in July or August. But I wanted to open it up to questions if anybody has any questions about the project. Julie?
I was just wondering how often the carousel image would be changed. Do you have a set time, or are you going to just do it on an as-needed basis?
I think we'll probably do it pretty ad hoc in the beginning, but I think the idea is to keep an editorial calendar so that it doesn't stay stale. Somebody up there had a question. Yes?
Can you speak to mobile?
It will work on mobile as well. It will be responsive. So it will be the same experience, just smaller. Yes?
Would you be willing to share your RFP?
Can you email me?
Sure.
Great. Let's talk after. Yes?
I assume the whole thing is on Drupal platform, right?
The whole thing is on Drupal 7.
Okay, so which means you basically collect everything from like a previous different sections under one main URL.
Yes.
Like everything goes like
Yes.
It's a big site basically, and I'm wondering. No, this is like a general like a sort of Drupal related questions. Like, do you have like a staging area?
We do.
We do, like you have staging, and then you like before you publish it, you just sort of your staging.
Well, during migration, we're using staging just because
No, I mean
when it goes live, we'll have a workflow.
Okay.
So there will be a workflow where a user can go in and create their item, And then there'll be a person who approves that item. So it won't be seen until it's ready to be published. So in essence, it sort of is staging, but it's really just the workflow.
But you don't have like a sort of separate staging area there. You view it before you release
You can still view it before you release it in the workflow.
Okay.
No one would see it except for the person who could approve it,
Okay.
so that they can make sure that the content is correct, that there's any spelling errors or
Yeah. Is that
anything glaring.
designed from the vendor, or is some function can be easily do?
The workflow is the workflow designed from the vendor? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
From the vendor.
Yes, they asked us what type of workflow we were looking for, and we designed that with them.
Okay, so it's not actually like part of Drupal module.
Well, it is a Drupal module, but you just have to you have to configure it.
But is it in the dev environment of Yale sites?
Not currently.
Okay.
No, well, we're in the staging. We're not in dev, so for staging, a lot of things are turned off for migration because we don't want to be creating features because the vendor is creating features on their end while we're migrating, and they'll be iterating on that. So they didn't want to turn on certain things like, I don't know, feeds or being able to create views or anything like that because we're just pulling in the content right now. Yes?
Two questions. One is marketing. How are you going to, what's the strategy to let the Yale community know
So right now, I think we're communicating more locally with the units that are going to be included in the site. And I think we have a pretty extensive communications plan that these guys have been working on really hard. So that's part of the forward projection. And it's going to be a collaborative effort with administration and HR as well as finance. So it's also a governance thing in terms of marketing. Did you have a second question?
So individual contributors to the website content it's decentralized. So it's in each department.
Yep.
Who's watching the language choice, the brevity, appropriateness?
So we're going to work with you to establish voice and tone to make sure that it's cohesive. And we have a voice and tone guide. And also, I believe OPAC has a style guide for how things should be written. So we'll combine those two things. And I think potentially our vendor is going to go through and check to make sure that everything looks like it's coming from the same voice. Because you're right, all of the sites right now have their own voice. So it's definitely a challenge.
So I can see that on the front end, making sure that what happens a year and a half down the road when people have contributed over a year and a half, and you have a dozen people within HR who, maybe I'm the one who originally started out, learned the voice and tone, but I needed to train somebody else who thought they heard it this way, and I'm just wondering, is it just pancakes out?
Right. And I think, eventually we may want to think about having a person who just oversees that, just a content person who oversees that, an editor. But right now, when we're done migrating, we're going to come to the units and say, here's what you had in your site, here's what's in the new site, which is the same. Can you please edit it and pare it down a bit? So we'll be shaving a little bit in the beginning. And then I think it's also going to be ongoing training in terms of voice and tone. I think we're going to have regular training for people because it's not easy. Totally. Yes.
Because I'm not going to pay attention to other sites, I'm just going to pay attention
Right.
to my content.
Right. Does anyone else have any other questions?
How do you cope with the upcoming Drupal 8
Mm-hmm.
It's a long process by itself. And then meanwhile, with a Drupal 8 now.
So I think they're still working on bringing us Drupal 8, which is coming, I believe, what Lek just said, in April. I don't think this site would be a candidate for that quite yet because we're not launching until the end of July. But we definitely want to think about moving it when it's ready. We want it to be the most current. Rosemary?
Is there anything special for Mac users to know? I know sometimes these get a little sticky.
Macs are awesome. What are you talking about? Nothing I'm aware of right now. That is a good question, though. I guess we'll see. Anyone else? Yes?
Where did your vendor demonstrate their value the most? In other words, what was, if you had very minimal budget, couldn't afford cheap?
And we do.
Pretend it's even less.
It is. You wouldn't even believe it.
Suppose you had $1,500 to spend.
Right.
What would be the area where your vendor would demonstrate the most value, where you couldn't corral the internal resources to truly develop the site in the way that you envision it?
So I think for us the most important thing, A, is trust, and we definitely trust them, and B, that they know what they're talking about. So they're extremely gifted in the back end, the administrative back end, and that's really what we needed for this project more than, say, the design front end. This project has a lot of complex pieces that we're trying to pull together, so we wanted to make sure that they could help us do that in the easiest way possible administratively, from a Drupal administrative point of view. So when you go into your Drupal site and you see the top bar and you have all those drop downs, we wanted them to be able to understand how Yale Sites does that and to mirror that for us. So they do work a lot with the Yale Sites team to make sure that it's not really that much of a custom one-off site, that it feels like part of the Yale Sites family. And it is based on the Yale Sites platform. So we're using a lot of the same modules, but some of them may be tweaked a little bit differently to look a little different. Anyone else? Kathy?
So I'm a little confused with the concept of themes.
Okay.
I know Nancy is doing something this afternoon about the new themes. Is the new themes what's on this new site? How do they relate to each other?
So I think that the new themes, and I don't 100% know, but I think that the new themes are supposed to make the sites look a little bit more fresh and a little bit more like the Yale.edu design. And so that's what we did here, too, with our site. And I can go back so you can see. So that they all feel like they're in the same family. And I think that the new theming will be sort of like this, like more open, more white space, the Yale blue, bigger, a little bolder, a little simpler. And so for people that want to upgrade their sites to those themes, I think it's going to be pretty easy. Anyone else? All right. I'll be here all day, so if you have any questions, let me know. But thank you so much for coming, and have fun at Drupal Camp.